As it is correctly said by Peter Sondergaard, information is the oil of the 21st century and analytics is the combustion engine. Good morning to one and all present here. I, Soumya Jain, a first-year PGDM student, on behalf of Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management, would like to welcome you all to this year's International Operations and Analytics Seminar. The business world is changing rapidly and is going through a transformation phase due to unprecedented disruptions and market turbulences. Business transformation focuses on creating new values, unlocking new opportunities, attaining new growth, and achieving efficiency. Technological innovations play an increasingly prominent role in the growth of leading industrial economies. Technological innovation creates opportunities for entrepreneurs to find new organizations and establish competitive positions. With this, organizations can become more innovative, flexible, and more adaptive than ever before. Keeping this in mind, we have set the theme for this year's International Operations and Analytics Seminar as Business Transformation, Turning Technology and Innovation to Achieve Excellence. Now, to move forward, I would request Ms. Shiali Sharma to come up and continue with the proceedings of the seminar.
Thank you, Soumya. We are extremely honored to have the august presence of all our distinguished guests today. I would hence like to take this opportunity to thank you all for being a part of this international seminar. Before we start off with the seminar, let us take a moment to remember the man whose dreams and aspirations motivated others to work towards the common goal of the nation. The man whose basic idea of governance was to hold the society together so that it can develop as a whole and march towards the common goal. The man of the masses and India's great son, late Shri Lal Bahadur Shastri Ji. Now, we will have a short film on the life and times of Shastri Ji.
सत्ताईस मई 1964 पंडित जवाहरलाल नेहरू का निधन हो गया। देश गहरे विषाद में डूब गया। सभी के मन में एक ही सवाल था, कौन बनेंगे नए प्रधानमंत्री, कौन करेंगे इस महान सभ्यता का नेतृत्व।
आफ्टर नेहरू के बाद कौन होगा, तो ये उनको इस बात का एहसास था। जब मुझसे पूछा गया कि इस कमी को दूर कैसे करेंगे, तो उन्होंने कहा कि पंडित जी ने अपने व्यक्तित्व की वजह से, टावरिंग पर्सनैलिटी की वजह से, उन्होंने इस पद को शक्ति प्रदान की और मैं प्रयास करूंगा इस पद से शक्ति प्राप्त करने की, जिससे कि मैं देश की सेवा कर सकूं।
2 अक्टूबर 1904 के दिन काशी के पास मुगल सराय में जन्मे लाल बहादुर का पूरा व्यक्तित्व ही गांधीवाद का जीता जागता स्वरूप था।
उनकी सादगी, पहली बात तो धोती पहनते थे। ये आम आदमी को उससे बड़ा भरोसा हो जाता था कि हमारे जैसे है।
पिता की छत्रछाया बचपन में ही छिन गई थी। विधवा मां के साथ ननिहाल चले गए, वहीं पर परवरिश हुई। 1921 में जब स्वतंत्रता आंदोलन में कूद पड़े तो निष्ठा और दृढ़ता के प्रमाण मिलते चले गए। 17 वर्ष की आयु से स्वाधीनता तक लगभग 9 साल जेल में काटे। मंत्रालय से इस्तीफा दे दिया।
उन्होंने वो इस्तीफा देकर राजनीति में नए मूल्यों की स्थापना की।
नेहरू जी के मंत्रिमंडल में कई विशिष्ट पदों पर अपनी छाप छोड़ते हुए वे गृह मंत्री नियुक्त हुए। 9 जून 1964 पंडित नेहरू के निधन के बाद स्वयं
के दबाव में आने वाले व्यक्ति नहीं थे। जब ऐसी घटना होती है तो बहुत ज्यादा अंतर्राष्ट्रीय दबाव होते हैं। अगर आप दब गए तो झुक जाएंगे। वो नहीं दबे, लेकिन फिर शायद दोनों देशों की भलाई सोचकर वो युद्ध विराम पर राजी हो गए।
10 जनवरी 1966 ताशकंद। जिन आदर्शों के नैतिक बल का मजा वो पाकिस्तान को चखा चुके थे, आज उन्हीं आदर्शों की उदारता से उन्होंने समझौते के कागजात पर दस्तखत कर दिए। लेकिन अभी समझौते के दस्तावेज पर स्याही सूखी भी न थी कि उसी रात शास्त्री जी को दिल का दौरा पड़ा और उनकी मृत्यु हो गई। गांधी जी ने कहा था कि शत्रु का दिल जीतना ही वास्तविक जीत है। सुदूर ताशकंद में जब स्वर्गीय लाल बहादुर शास्त्री को कोसिजन के साथ साथ खुद जनरल अयूब खान ने कंधा दिया, तो लगा जैसे शास्त्री जी बापू के फलसफे को चरितार्थ कर दुनिया से रुखसत हो गए थे। लाल बहादुर शास्त्री केवल 18 महीनों तक भारत के प्रधानमंत्री रहे, लेकिन अपने प्रधानमंत्रित्व के छोटे से कार्यकाल में शास्त्री जी ने भारत के हर नागरिक के कानों में आत्मसम्मान और आत्मबल का मंत्र फूंक दिया था।
We are fortunate to have leaders and eminent personalities from operations and analytics area with us today. We have the dignified presence of our chief guest, Professor U. Dinesh Kumar, Professor of Decision Science, IIM Bangalore, and our keynote speaker, Mr. Shiv Kumar, Head of Analytics, Schlumberger. We are also pleased to have our keynote speakers for Session 2, Mr. Varun Mehta, Director, APJ SAS Australia, and Dr. Krishna Venkatesh, Academic Consultant, PEREGRINE Global Fellow Institute of Directors, United States of America. We are also joined in by the keynote speakers of Session 3, Professor Prem Chetri, School of Accounting, Information System and Supply Chain, RMIT University, Melbourne, Australia. Professor O.P. Wali, Consultant at the level of Professor at IIFT. Dr. Kanika Gandhi, Senior Maintenance Engineer, Data Science, Volvo, Sweden, and Dr. Siddharth S. Padi, Associate Professor, IIM Kozhikode. Thank you all for being a part of today's seminar. Moving on, following the tradition of LBSIM, we would like to invite Professor Praveen Gupta, Director, Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management, Professor G.L. Sharma, Head New Projects, Advisor, Corporate Interface, Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management, Dr. Shivani Bali, Seminar Convener, Dr. Sandhya Makar, Seminar Joint Convener, Colonel Ajay Sood, Chief Administrative Officer, and Mr. Yash Khanna, President, Management Grid, to kindly come up on the stage, light the ceremonial lamp, and offer floral tributes to late Sri Lal Bahadur Shastri Ji. Thank you, everyone. May I now request everyone to rise for the Institute's anthem.
बहादुर के सपनों का अनुपम अनुसंधान शोध और शिक्षा से करते सकल विश्व निर्माण सत्य सरल सुंदर जीवन का शिक्षा ही आधार LBSIM करती है सतत इसे साकार जीवन और प्रबंधन काले करके अक्षय ज्ञान के नित्य बढ़ाते मातृभूमि का मान शास्त्री जी के ही सारे आदर्श हमारे प्राण LBSI का प्रण है भारत बने महान जय जवान जय किसान जय जवान जय किसान जयती जयती जय 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 LBSIM
May I now request everyone to please be seated. Thank you. We are honored to have the dignified presence of our director, Professor Praveen Gupta. I would now request you to come up on the stage and officially set today's seminar open. Please, sir.
Respected Chairman Board of Governors, Shri Anil Shastri ji, Professor from IIM Bangalore, Dr. U. Dinesh Kumar, Head Analytics, Schlumberger, Mr. Shiv Kumar, Corporate Interface, Head Dr. G.L. Sharma, my colleagues on the dais, Dr. Shivani Bali, Dr. Sandhya Makkar, Student Management Grid President, Mr. Yash Khanna, Chief Administrative Officer, Colonel Ajay Sood, my dear faculty colleagues, distinguished speakers of the day, students, all my administration colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed my pleasure to welcome you for this very interesting and informative webinar that we have planned for you, Business Transformation, Turning Technology and Innovation to Achieve Excellence. I feel in today's world, the change is a small word. It is the transformation. Business transformation is nothing but turning technology and innovation and bringing widespread organizational changes to deliver superior customer experience and employee experience. And if you allow me to say, to extend further, it is the experience of all the stakeholders in the business. But we can't afford to be laggards. In today's time, we have to bring change, and we have to bring change very fast. Investing in the right technology can help the organizations to deliver superior value to the customers. As we have studied in marketing concepts, the customer experience can be, customer excellence can be experienced in as a matter of triad of product excellence, superior customer intimacy, and the process excellence. I'm drawing parallel from there. I'll say technology innovation can help in terms of innovative products and services, exceptional customer experience, and automated work processes. Market scenario is challenging. Business environment is challenging. And in today's world, it is turning to be disruptive. Now, what is the way out? Way out is the investing our energy, investing our resources in terms of business innovations, in terms of technology and innovations. Recently, the COVID pandemic has offered great challenge to the entire world. And India and Indians have risen to the challenge. I'm talking in terms of our efforts in bringing in the COVID vaccine. So let me congratulate youngsters of India. And I also draw a parallel from the recent Indians' performance in Australia. We can say it is a small change. No, it's not a small change. It's a systemic work which BCCI has done for last 5 years. And everybody is acknowledging that. So with these words, I expect if we can inspire some of our students to be the entrepreneurs, to be the change agent, I think we have done our duty in organizing this webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, I would request Dr. Shivani Bali, seminar convener, to apprise us about the theme of the seminar. Please, ma'am.
Thank you, Soumya. Our chief guest of the seminar, Professor Dinesh Kumar, Professor, IIM Bangalore. The keynote speaker of the inaugural session, Mr. Shiv Kumar, Head of Analytics, Schlumberger. Dr. Praveen Gupta, Director, LBSIM. Dr. G.L. Sharma, Advisor, Corporate Interface. Colonel Ajay Sood, Chief Admin Officer. Dr. Sandhya Makkar, Seminar Joint Convener. Mr. Yash Khanna, President, Management Grid. Keynote speakers, delegates, faculty colleagues, and my dear students. It is my privilege to welcome you all to the International Seminar on Business Transformation, Turning Technology and Innovation to Achieve Excellence, and to introduce the topic for today. Transformation is the buzzword these days. We all are surrounded by the intelligent systems that perform and help us with our daily tasks and hence transforming our daily working life. The business is also changing rapidly than ever before and is going through a transformational phase due to unprecedented disruptions and market turbulences. Business transformation focuses on creating new values, unlocking new opportunities, attaining new growth, and achieving efficiency. CEO Reed Hastings of Netflix in 2013 took a transformational decision. He decided to move from just distributing content digitally to become a leading producer of original content that could win Emmys and Oscars. Since unveiling that new purpose, Netflix revenue and profits got significantly improved. The fourth industrial revolution, which is a collection of new technologies and business models, started transforming societies and consumer habits, requiring businesses to adapt to meet the new challenges of today's dynamic environment. This drew attention of many companies to reevaluate their business strategies for better utilization of existing resources and infrastructure, subsequently raising the need of business transformation. Post-COVID-19, companies are facing unprecedented set of challenges and business leaders are realizing the need of resilience across businesses. Hence, it has become the need of the hour to realize major trends, transforming operations to protect the business houses from disruptions. The seminar, with its inaugural and technical sessions, aims to bring together the industry practitioners and the academicians to discuss their viewpoints on how the organizations can rethink and create value in the business for present and future times. I am grateful to the chief guest and the keynote speakers for accepting our invite to be the part of this seminar. I wish everyone a fruitful seminar and once again extend a very hearty welcome to all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for apprising us with the theme of today's conference. We are all looking forward to the enriching discussion lined up. Taking the proceedings forward, we would now like to introduce our chief guest for today, Professor U. Dinesh Kumar. Professor Kumar is a faculty of Decision Sciences and Information Systems at the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, with a rich teaching experience of more than 20 years. He is chairperson of MBA Business Analytics, a 2-year full-time program, chairperson Data Center and Analytics Lab, chairperson Career Development Services, and IIMB Chair of Excellence. He has a master's degree in applied mathematics from PSG College of Technology, Tamil Nadu, and a PhD in mathematics from Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay. He has published more than 70 research articles in reputed academic journals such as European Journal of Operational Research, International Journal of Production Economics, the Journal of Operational Research Society, Computers and Operations Research, to name a few. Professor Kumar has published more than 30 case studies at the Harvard Business Publishing Case Portal on the use of predictive and prescriptive analytics by the Indian companies and multinational organizations such as Apollo Hospitals, BigBasket.com, Bollywood, Flipkart, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, etc. Professor Kumar has also authored 4 books in the area of analytics, published by renowned publishers like Wiley, Springer, and Kluwer Academic Publishers, USA. He has carried out consultancy projects for organizations such as Boston Consulting Group, India Private Limited, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, Indian Army, Wipro India Limited, and WHO in the domain of analytics. He has conducted in-house training program on analytics for several organizations, including Aditya Birla Group, Ashok Leyland, Bank of America, Cisco, and ITC Infotech, to name a few. He has won several accolades in the teaching field. He was awarded the Best Young Teacher Award by the Association of Indian Management Schools in 2003. Sir, we are extremely honored to have you here with us today. I would now request you to kindly deliver the inaugural address. Please, sir.
Hi, thank you for a wonderful introduction. Good morning, all. First of all, I would like to thank Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management for inviting me and requesting me to share my work with the participants of this international seminar. So before I go further, let me share my presentation. I guess all of you can see my presentation, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Right, so what I'm going to do in the next probably about 20 odd minutes, and then we can have some time for discussion, is talk about AI-driven innovation or artificial intelligence-driven innovation, which is one of the theme and which is also fitting well with business transformation, because if you look at the business world, a lot of the transformation or business transformation is today driven by AI, and also a lot of innovation is also driven by AI. Now, I'm sure that everybody here knows what is AI, so I will not get into that. And these are the 3 things that I found through my interaction. The first one is that they need to understand the economic drivers of the business, or better understanding of the economic drivers of business. So only then you can bring in change or transformation. So if you don't understand what are the economic drivers, then even the transformation or change that we are talking about is very, very difficult, right? The second important reason why organizations use AI is to manage mathematically intractable problems. So if you look at problems such as traveling salesman problem, I've seen organizations, small and medium enterprises, or even NGOs, such as Acheive struggling with traveling salesman problem, as well as like huge organizations such as Amazon. right? So the other reason, the second important reason why organizations use AI is to manage mathematically intractable problems. The third, the most important, that's where all this innovation and business transformation comes in, is to create competitive advantage. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to talk about two examples or two projects that we at IIM Bangalore did, or part of the project. And I'm going to talk about how we brought in innovation and how it is actually transforming a social sector and also a corporate, right? So that's the plan. And before we get into the actual cases that I'm going to talk about, we need to understand how do you, say that, okay, that's an innovative solution, right? So to call something as innovation, you have to measure the impact. For example, if you take AI as a vertical within an organization, obviously any initiative will require some input. So you have to hire some data scientists and invest in AI infrastructure like software platforms and so on. And obviously with this input, we have to create output. So we call this as AI assets, or basically AI ML models. This could be, say, churn prediction model or fraud prediction model and so on. But then it serves the purpose only when you start looking at, okay, how much impact it has made, right? Are you able to solve the life? So today we can say, okay, because of this treatment that we have invented, are we able to are we able to save more lives? So any initiative becomes successful, or any transformation becomes successful only when you can establish the impact. I'll just tell you one interesting example. I don't know how many of you have heard about Martin Baker. It's a company based out of UK that makes ejection seats in fighter aircrafts. And if you visit their website, like unlike any other website, you will not find how many products they have made, what is their revenue, what is the profit, and so on. This is what you see. It says total lives saved. So since their inception, because they have put ejection seats in fighter aircrafts, and whenever the pilot thinks that there is a problem, he can eject the seat and save himself. Now, this is 7,638. That's the number that I saw last week. And you multiply that with the number of family members and so on. So this is the impact that we should actually try to achieve any kind of business transformation, not necessarily the life saved, but how much impact you made on your customers, how much impact you made on your stakeholders, and in general, the society. So the innovation and the business transformation, you see that you have to measure it. What I'm going to do now is going to talk about two projects that we did in the recent past. And we are talking about I'll be talking about how we went about this project and what kind of impact that we are able to make. The first one is neonatal sepsis prediction using machine learning algorithm. This was carried out in collaboration with Abhyantara, which is a startup based out of Hyderabad, works in healthcare technology. Before I get into the project itself, let me give some brief outline of what we are looking at. So if you look at neonatal sepsis, these are basically, very severe kind of that is within the first 28 days of the baby's birth. And then we track up to first year and then up to 5 years. If you look at the data on neonatal mortality rate, it is 25, which is basically 25 out of 1,000 births, which is probably the highest in the world. In fact, if you look at the Asian countries, the only other country which has the worst NMR is Afghanistan. So none of the other countries have such a high mortality rate because of sepsis. There are many reasons. Still, large number of our population lives in villages. So the health infrastructure is not great. And many times, some of these villages will have just the ASHA worker, or probably the ASHA worker is shared among few villages. So there is a lack of health infrastructure. Maybe they have to travel 40, 50 kilometers even to reach a primary health center. And because of this, there is a delayed diagnosis. And I heard this one that when somebody says, okay, the baby is not doing fine, and even the transport is a problem. So the number that I heard is that 40% of the babies die during the transport or the lack of transport and so on. And the other associated problem is that typically what happens is that the moment they suspect that there is probably sepsis, giving and is not the right kind of antibiotic, or if it is an overdose of antibiotic, then the baby can develop antibiotic resistance, which can lead to many other complications and so on. So this is the kind of problem that we looked at. And our project is, can we develop some kind of early warning system so that a quick decision can be taken by the hospitals or even the ASHA workers so that they can save the life of the baby, right? So they have a target as of now. So currently from 25 per 1,000 live births, the target is to reach 12 per 1,000 live birth by 2030. Given the conditions, we see a lot of improvement in healthcare, but it is still not at a stage whether we can achieve this. So that's where we come in, and we thought, okay, we can use AI and ML algorithms, which can be used for early warning or prediction of sepsis at much earlier stage, so that there is a very good probability or chance for saving the life of a baby. And this problem is acute in bottom of the pyramid. So if you look at, this is the data that we acquired from different sources. About 25 million babies are born annually in India, and about 10 million at the bottom of the pyramid. And 80% of deaths happen in rural areas. So you can easily correlate this with the lack of healthcare facilities in rural areas, because of which 80% of that 25 million is happening in rural area. So what we thought, we will collect data, and thanks to Abhayantra, they had tied up with a few hospitals, and we thought we'll collect data and develop machine learning algorithms so that we can provide early warning to the healthcare service providers, which will enable them to take right decision at the right time, so that the life of the baby could be saved. So we collected data from referral hospitals, and also there are a lot of, typically any of these projects involving analytics will have many different types of difficulties related to the data, because most of the times the data is manual, and also not many have electronic health records, and it's time-consuming, laborious process, and the data itself, sometimes there are reliability issues and so on, right? So what we did is, basically we thought that we can make an impact if we can develop a system which reach the ASHA workers who are typically service delivery targeting mom and baby health, right? So typically what they would observe is whether the baby is active, whether the baby is breathing properly, and so on. So can we even develop a model with just that invasive kind of data, whether they can predict at an early stage the potential sepsis and then start treatment? I mean, obviously many of these villages may not have the facilities to treat. At least they can refer to the primary health care as soon as possible. And then once the baby is in either secondary or tertiary health care, you would get a lot of invasive data, such as culture reports and other blood sample report and all that, right? Also, you can have access to X-ray and so on, so you can check whether the baby is catching pneumonia and all those kind of things. So what we did, I'll just skip some of these things. We did a lot of exploratory analysis, And finally, I'll just skip the model that we developed. Finally, developed a model which can help ASHA workers to decide, which can help doctors without much access to diagnostic tests and so on, which are non-invasive features to decide. And also, once the baby is in a tertiary care kind of health delivery system, they will also have access to invasive features, right? So this model is now being tested, and you can see that we develop different kinds of models: random forest, logistic regression, gradient boosting, ADA boost, XG boost, and so on. We have an accuracy of 80%. Now, this is a kind of large jump that we have seen so far, because basically what we are saying is that there is a potential to save at least certain proportion of these 80%, right? And we are also giving a very useful tool at ASHA worker level. That's a plan. We are not implemented this. It's still an ongoing project, so that we can equip the healthcare delivery system across India with such kind of tools, which will finally enable them to take right decision, and hopefully we can save a lot of lives because we have such kind of systems. So what we are trying to achieve here is basically try to come up with a system which can reduce the mortality rate among babies or neonatal sepsis below even 28 days after birth, but extend that to babies below the age of 5 years. Now, there are a lot of challenges that we have also observed. So many times, many of these hospitals don't even have the proper mother parameter and baby parameter and so on. But these are some of the things that we use for building the model. It is under test now. I'll just skip some of these actual model explainability thing, which is, useful if you are an expert in AI and ML. But what it shows is that this model has also built-in explainability. When you are saying why you suspect that the baby may end up in sepsis, the model also gives explanation why the model is predicting that, right? So it is under deployment now, and hopefully we will scale it up so that this can become a very, very useful tool for healthcare delivery services across India, right? So that's the first example where we are actually using innovation and transformation to make an impact in healthcare kind of domain. So that's a social problem that we address, but we frequently work with a lot of companies which are for-profit companies, right? One of them, which I believe is a very, very innovative problem that we looked at, is for Big Basket. Many of you probably buy items from Big Basket. So when you place an order from Big Basket, after adding the items to the cart, you see that at the bottom of the cart, they have this question, did you forget, right? And the question is, why do they ask this question, and what is the impact of this particular feature? Now, if you look at the general statistics, about 60% of us forget one or two items when it comes to grocery purchase. It's a very, very common problem. The forgetfulness among grocery purchase is very, very common problem. So this is an e-commerce portal. So whenever a customer forgets, let us say he or she remembers after 4 or 5 hours, they may go back and place another order. That will increase the logistic cost of Big Basket because they're making 2 trips now to the customer. Or they may go to a nearby mom and pop store and with an objective to buy the forgotten item. But since they are already in the store, they are going to buy items that they will need in the future. So if you look at in both these scenarios, it is going to have an impact. Either it is going to reduce the revenue or increase the cost of delivery. So that's why this is a very, very important problem. Now, the question is, how do you develop a model for this? How can you predict whether somebody has forgotten an item or not? This can be viewed as kind of recommender system, but not exactly a recommender system. Because if you look at the traditional recommender system, if they use collaborative filtering kind of technique and so on, like Shivani mentioned about Netflix in her talk. So either the companies such as Netflix or Amazon, they're looking at what item the customer is likely to buy in the future based on algorithms such as collaborative filtering algorithm, which looks at similar customers in their database. Whereas here it's a grocery purchase and these are all repeat items. So probably every week you may buy potato, tomato, and so on, right? And you have to somehow also assess the consumption rate of customers based on how frequently they're buying or placing order for these products. Now, this is not that easy simply for the reason Big Basket is not the only place where they may be buying their products. They may be buying from nearby vegetable mandis and so on, right? So it becomes a very, very challenging problem. And also, there are products which are anyway you will find frequently in most of the baskets, like potatoes and onions and so on. All right. So the question is, how do you even come up with a recommendation where you don't unnecessarily include SKUs, which are likely to appear in almost all baskets, because it will be a noise in your model development, right? So what we did, we actually used Google's page ranking algorithm to solve this analytical problem. So if you go back to 1998, when Google came into the picture, there were more than 12 search engines, Alta Vista, InfoSeek, and so on. But then we don't even hear them nowadays because they don't exist. So how did Google manage to capture the entire search engine market? So when they introduced the Google search engine, they also kind of supported that with the Google's page ranking algorithm. So look at all the web pages, matching web pages, and rank them and start displaying or showing that to the customer based on the rank, the top one, second one, third one, and so on. So what we did, we borrowed this idea. So for each customer, we, based on the customer's purchase behavior, we rank those items and then we create a set. So whenever the customer adds items to his or her cart, this rank the set is used. And once he completes adding the items to the cart and when he click on the checkout, we start showing the items which are ranked by the algorithm but not added by the customer and ask that question, did you forget? Now, this is a lot more complex because you have to do all this in real time. And we also have a lot of issues, data-related issues, because many customers purchase only few times. In fact, 25% of the customers in the data purchase only once. So this is a famous cold start problems in machine learning algorithms. So when you don't have any history of the customer, how do you actually make these kind of predictions? But then it was successfully deployed. I'll not get into the actual algorithm. This is a pictorial representation of the page ranking algorithm. If you're familiar with Markov chain, you can just treat this simply as a transition probability diagram in Markov chain. In fact, what we finally end up doing is find the stationary distribution of a Markov chain. So, and this is how it is deployed in the real life. So you keep tracking which items are added by the customer into his or her cart. And once the cart is added, you just start throwing up the items and ask the question, did you forget this? So these are the two examples that I thought I will discuss. Obviously, we have been working with a large number of companies. And one of the things that we impress or basically stress importance is on the kind of outcome that we can create and also look at what kind of impact that can have for that organization. It doesn't matter whether it is a social sector or a small and medium enterprise or a big corporate. We work with all of them. In fact, we have done some work for ISKCON Temple I mentioned Akshay Patra Foundation, which provides free meal to the children, and also large corporates such as Hewlett Packard, Flipkart, Big Basket, and many more, Larsen and Toubro, many of those companies which are for-profit companies. So what I'm trying to finally conclude is that when somebody wants to go through innovation, right, or business transformation, today many would use AI to achieve that because it's a wonderful tool. But having said that, you have to be careful while using AI because there are a lot of instances where AI also failed. So we should not think that AI is the one-stop solution. So with that kind of warning, I would like to stop here. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, sir, for presenting and sharing such insightful views on the topic. Now, I would request Kanishk Mittal, PGDM first year student, to moderate the question and answer session. Please, Kanishk.
Good morning, sir.
Good
We have
morning.
received some questions from the students in the chat box. The question I would like to ask on behalf of our student is, how do you see industrial Internet of Things forcing or encouraging companies to invest and work together to achieve operational excellence?
So Internet of Things, right? Is that the question?
Yes,
I'm
sir.
just trying to see the chat here. Okay, I can't see the questions, but anyway, I'll answer that question. See, there are a lot of, if you look at my second slide, I mentioned that one of the reasons why organizations try to use AI is that there are a lot of mathematically intractable problems, right? And how do you solve that? So recently, we worked with one of the organizations. This is a manufacturing firm. And in their production, because the temperature can reach up to 350 degrees centigrade and so on, there is a risk of fire, right? So as of now, they have obviously cameras fit everywhere, and then somebody is continuously monitoring the camera. And the moment they see a spark, they shut down the entire manufacturing unit, dose off the fire, and then they start the production again. But this is a very, very expensive business because if you shut down the production for even half an hour, the production loss can lead to several $million, right? So they asked us, okay, can we develop a model which can give us an early warning? Basically, can you predict 15 minutes in advance a chance of fire in this production, right? So they had a lot of sensors. Since you mentioned IoT devices, they capture temperature on a minute-by-minute basis, humidity, and all other parameters. So we actually developed models and we used unsupervised learning algorithms because they had only about some less than 20 fire incident. Now, when you say fire incident, this is not a full-blown fire that we are talking about. There's the sparks, which can lead to a major fire. So the moment they see a spark, they shut down and then dose it off, right? So they had only 20 incidents in the entire year. And this is a minute-by-minute data. So we are talking about very, very rare event, right? So we used techniques which probably they never imagined, and we reached up to 80% accuracy. So they are now, this is a just completed project. They are started deploying it. So IoT is it's a game changer for AI. I just gave you one example, but there are a large number of examples. For example, in healthcare, right? Elderly care, we will see soon the percentage of or proportion of the population above 80 years is already huge in many countries. For example, Japan, it is probably about 25%, but that will be the case for many countries in at least in another 10 years. So how do you provide care, right? And we'll have devices which monitor them remotely, and the entire healthcare delivery may change thanks to all these IoT devices and so on, right?
Thank you so much, sir. Over to you, comparing team.
Now, I would request Professor Praveen Gupta and Dr. Shivani Bali to felicitate Professor U. Dinesh Kumar with a memento.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would now like to take an opportunity to thank Professor Kumar for gracing the occasion and being a part of this seminar in spite of his busy schedule. Thank you for joining in, sir.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody. I showed my email, dinesh@imb.ac.in. If you have any further queries, you can drop me a mail. Sorry, I have to take a leave because I have a class at 12 and I had to do something before that. Shivkumar, I would have loved to attend your talk, but unfortunately I had to run to another class and hope to see you guys again later. Thank you. Bye. Thank you, everybody at Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management. It's a great initiative. Well done. And I'll catch up with you later. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much, sir. I would now like to take this opportunity to introduce our keynote speaker for today's session, Mr. Shiv Kumar. Mr. Kumar is the head of analytics, India Technology Center at Schlumberger, and is a data science strategy consulting leader with 14 years of experience in management consulting, strategy, and predictive analytics solution. With an MBA degree in strategy and general management from IIM Kozhikode and a PhD in decision science from IIM Lucknow, he has worked with Fortune 500 companies in consulting and analytics engagement across the geography with culturally diversified teams. Mr. Kumar has driven management consulting and provided solutions to complex analytics problems for a wide range of industries such as BFSI, e-commerce, automotive, farm and agriculture sector, telecom, pharmaceuticals, and insurance businesses with the application of mathematical and statistical models to ensure meeting business objectives. He is specialized in driving change management and transformation of business using data-driven strategies and digital platforms. He has been engaged with industry and academic forums to contribute in knowledge sharing, guide, and build talent pool. He has published papers in various forums of repute and have been a speaker at leading B schools, SAS Global Forum, and industry talks. Sir, it is an honor to have you with us today. May I now request you to kindly deliver the keynote address. Please, sir.
Hi, good morning. Thanks a lot for the beautiful introduction.
You're welcome, sir.
Hope you can hear me, right? I'll just present my slide so that...
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Just confirm me if you can see the slide.
Yes, sir, it's visible now.
Thanks a lot. So good morning again, and probably there would not have been a better way to start the weekend, interacting with such an intellectual forum. And I would like to acknowledge that definitely Lal Bahadur Shastri and his philosophy has moved my career as well as inspiration to the real life. And connecting to some of the topic for today, and I would like to thank the professors and all the academicians from the Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management. And I welcome the students, researchers, and all the ladies and gentlemen from the management of the Institute. So today's topic, definitely we have started in talking on the artificial intelligence and machine learning, though I would like to cover some of the parts where how this transformation is now embedded for the leadership of 21st century. And probably we are going to have one of the cutting edge transformation which is coming across the different businesses. So we are going to talk some of the enabling technology and frameworks which are driving the artificial intelligence and machine learning transformation. And definitely with my background, which comes from the diversified industry and solving the different kind of problems, I would try to touch some of the use cases which are solved across the business domain in my experience, though it would be not talking about the much on the data side, but definitely how it has impacted the business and probably how it has driven the impact on the P&L statement or the balance sheet for the organization. So probably this is the core of the transformation where we would like to see how the different transformation initiatives are reflecting on the impact of the organization. And definitely in today's time, technology is taking the core of all the transformation. So moving on the slides, I would like to just quickly brief you what have been the guiding principle for these transformation, where the leadership have focused, building some of the concentrated effort. So I must say that there's a pursuit of relentless change in the business landscape and the customer need. And this has been one of the core of all the transformation. Secondly, if I try to understand, the more of the businesses are now trying to create a new future and probably embedding some of the purpose in their transformation. So definitely it is not just the transaction, but how we are going to impact the society and environment in general. So if I try to connect that what is happening in the business world, so probably we are not just thinking for the shareholders or just the employee, but how we are going to transform the society in general and the people lives. So this has been one of the enabler where most of the transformation is going to take place. And it is one of the enabling factor for us. And now, if I say that how the different businesses are going to bring the changes in the environment, probably with the help of the artificial intelligence and machine learning, and with the current event of the COVID, also it is going to create the safety and the healthy environment for the business world. So this is how I feel that various guiding principles are there for the strategic transformation, which is translated with the help of artificial intelligence and machine learning for us. Definitely now connecting you some of the thought process which can help us understanding where is the investment coming in. So probably one of the area which is, I would say that definitely looking for the new growth, and new growth can come as a new market or probably looking for the products which can drive the new revenue streams. And definitely with the changing landscape, probably most of the businesses are looking for those opportunities. And I can just connect with some of my latest experience where how Indian agriculture is going to get transformed using the artificial intelligence and machine learning. So probably product is going to be, and the market is going to be the center of the transformation if we look at the guiding principles. So just connecting you on some of the supporting threads. So whenever we are talking in terms of the transformation, probably many of the businesses, and you can recall that they are trying to change their legacy as well. So probably they are trying to reposition the core by using the technology and different digital landscape. Also, if we try to see the transformation, probably it is going to enable a lot of, you can say that measurement which is going to come to the market is with the help of their financial performance. So if I try to summarize that where we are going to have the most of the transformation, so probably it is going to look for the new growth using the product services and the new market. It may be trying to reposition the core where you may try to diversify your products and offering. And probably some of the businesses have looked completely different and trying to bring out the different products and services all together. So probably there may be some of the, the automotive company, and now it is completely transforming as a technology company. Or there can be some of the insurance company and translating itself into the completely a wellness firm there. So probably these are the swift changes, I would say that, and this is going to be the core of any of the transformation driven by technology and the artificial intelligence and machine learning. Definitely, if I try to recall, most of the companies, if you think of, let's say, Apple, either Netflix, either you think about the Disney, So one of the core measures which we are going to look at that, okay, how they have performed in the transformation time on their financial angle. So probably you are going to look at the compounded annual growth rate, or you're going to look at the profitability of those organizations. So these are the factors probably, you can say that enabling the transformation, and probably this is the need of today's time, because if you're not going to drive the agility and probably the technology backed some of the initiatives, probably you may not compete with the latest changes and the demand which is happening in the market. So now taking you to some of the concepts where we may try talking on the where we have done the transformation, and probably if we try to look at what have been probably the most of the cornerstone where we are trying to look at the transformation. So one I can think of mostly the strategic viewpoint, where you may try to create a new focus. It may be completely giving a new look to your operating models, and definitely artificial intelligence and machine learning is one of the enabler. And either it can be, if you try to see that, okay, where this technology are impacting, like artificial intelligence and machine learning. So probably you can think of making more operational efficiency, and definitely it can be one on the driving the innovation side, which may be of the new product, but most of the concentration with the immediate attention of the leadership is driving on the operational efficiency. So these are some of the, you can say that the cornerstone, which is going to drive the technology-driven transformation. Now, taking you to some of the discussion which may be probably connecting in today's time, what has happened in the business, and connecting to some of my latest exposure, to the farming and how technology is driving farming practices, and probably how artificial intelligence and machine learning can drive some of the transformation in the farmer's life. Either think about the automotive business, there you are trying to talk about the driverless cars. So probably we will just try to connect that what has happened, probably if you miss this transformation race or this vehicle to change your business or reshape your business. So probably I can say that, means if you don't innovate, probably it is going to take a toll on you, and you may extinct as a business, or you may die, and probably you may get acquired. So now just connecting you to some of the concept which may help us to understand that, okay, what has happened in the global landscape. So probably with my latest assignment, where I'm trying to learn and solve some of the problem in the energy sector, I would like to just talk on some of the examples, and probably that can help us to understand that what has happened in the landscape, and then probably we can talk on how the data, what are the technology, and what are the algorithms are impacting all of us. Yeah. So let me just help you understand. So in my one of the exploration, so I'm going to talk about the Danish oil and natural gas, which was one of the largest traditional energy-driven gas based on gas and oil and gas company out of the Denmark. And it was 2012 when generally we faced that, okay, the company is going to get downgraded on the financial ratings, and they suffered hugely on their balance sheet because of the crashes in the prices of oil and the natural gases. Now try to understand that the company in the last 7 to 8 years, they had transformed themselves completely to the green technology. Now, one of the angle where Iberdrola, which is a Spanish energy company, and this is the time of the year 2001 or 2, when most of the transformation were taking place in the energy space also, and which was at a very, very nascent stage. Nobody thought of that, Iberdrola, which was based out of the traditional energy, they sold off the businesses, and probably they adopted for investment into the wind and the solar, which at that point in time, it was very costly, and probably nobody, seen the commitment and the confidence in investing in those sectors in the wind and the solar energy. Though if you talk in today, in 2019 and 20, they have been one of the most profitable balance sheet if we look at in terms of the transformation. So probably these are the early symptoms that you are going to learn and understand, and maybe it takes toll on the entire process of investment, where you are investing in cutting edge deep learning and machine learning investment. And it may take time to give you the returns, but probably you have to be wise enough to catch those trends and identify the pattern and leapfrog on those new technology and the frameworks. Now, just connecting on some of the example. So here, I would say that what have been the core of the transformation? So I would say that, you need to have a good and a strong vision, commitment, and trust, where you think that, okay, it is going to, shift the business framework or the operating models, and you're going to drive. So probably it is going to make you more impatient if you're going to drive any of the transformation, that rather you wait and let your business suffer and drive down some of the threats that is shown to the businesses. So probably these are the two very, very prominent examples. And then I'll just try to catch on some of the China AIA group. They were primarily an insurance group, and now they have shifted their focus to a wellness company. And now if you try to talk about Philips, so you can understand that they have divested most of their legacy lightning businesses, and they have invested hugely on the IoTs and the healthcare devices, which is going to help them into the next level of the growth. Now, if I talk about the Siemens also, if I try to understand their transformation path, so they moved from maximizing the shareholder value. So this is a traditional outlook where we try to understand, okay, how our business is going to respond to the shareholders' expectation. And then probably we move to the customer or the employee centricity. And then now probably we have to move our framework where how you can tag your organizational vision with respect to serving society, or it is going to how bring the good to the common masses. So probably your technology and investment has to connect the larger vision of the change and transformation. And probably this is going to be enabler to think through any of the transformation in today's time. Now, let me connect you what has happened in the today's time when we were experiencing the COVID. So I'll tell you some of the experiences with the leadership is that, when the COVID started, probably we started stopping the investment on the artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithm. And probably we realized that, okay, these are not the investment which has to go right now, because we turned into the cash preservation mode and we wanted to save as much as cash possible. And probably we were not sure of how the tomorrow is going to come out. And then what happened after 3 to 4 months time, we realized that, okay, this is going to be the truth of the, you can say that the coming future. So are we going to spread ourselves and wait for the time to get over vaccine to come, or shall we start investing? So I'll tell you one of the largest initiative I happen to take up, which is called as a control tower. So control tower, you can imagine, is nothing but imagine the front end data sources, which is related to your customers, distributors, the market signals, and then you have your supply chain, suppliers, your procurement, manufacturing, and you tie it together and you try to assimilate information in such a way that imagine the demand of, let's say, model A changes to model B because of changes in the business domain, how you're going to respond on the market. So imagine after 3 to 4 months of the lockdown, we started changing the way of, you can say that, thinking or thought process. And we started, I would say that, deploying the digital nerve center. This is nothing but a synonym of, I can say that, the control tower, which is going to connect the back end and the front end and provide the CXOs to the right information for the decision making. Definitely, there was a need of the cultural shift. Imagine the organization. I was with Mahindra and Mahindra before taking this role at Schlumberger. This was the organization with a great positivity. However, we needed human touch. We always, wanted the meetings happen face to face. Teams sitting in one room. And probably when I started that, okay, the getting data scientists is difficult in Bombay. Why don't we start in Bangalore, either in Gurgaon? So probably there were the eyebrows raised that, okay, this is not possible. This can't be done, sitting at the distant places. But imagine within the few months, we all started converging. So probably it needed the law of cultural shift. And definitely we invested a lot into getting the real-time data feed from the market so that we can support the decision making better. So this is a kind of I just tried setting what is happening in terms of the transformation and probably what was leading the transformation for us. Now connecting, and probably this is just quick to set the context, and then we may come on some of the more discussion. So probably, we all are aware that these all transformation are led by digitization and the penetration of the mobility and internet. And I would say that definitely the raise in terms of the volume and velocity of data coming into the organization, there is a veracity and variety of the data. And now you need something which is going to compile this all information and helping you to translate into the quick decision making. So probably the investment was required. One is the computational platforms. Second is the algorithmic power where you can build up quick and what Professor Dinesh Kumar was talking about, non-parametric and supervised and unsupervised algorithms. So probably we needed the algorithms which can be self-explanatory, which can be quick and fast to make up. So just to build up some of more context around and giving you the views what has happened in the industry in the latest 3 to 4 years, and in coming 5 years what is going to be the potential technology for us. So definitely now, if I try to classify as intelligent, emergent, and scalability of the technologies. So probably one is definitely on the data side, where you want to look at the augmented analytics and explainable AIs, where the stakeholders are not now interested to wait for longer time, where you clean the data, you create the modeling data marts, then you run the 5-6 equation based algorithm, but it is going to be quick. The data is going to be trained automatically with the help of the platforms. It is going to be cleaned up with the automated platform, and probably out of the 10 set of the algorithm, it is going to pick up the best set of algorithm and going to get recommendation from the model. So probably this is going to be now the need of the today's time of the transformation. Now it is not that ad hoc means I am a business stakeholder, I have come and asked for a solution. Probably now it is going to be a continuous solution, and it has to be quick as well. Probably now the entire advent of the blockchain, and I'll tell you, I had looked at a business which is to the export of the foods, and imagine that how blockchain can help you in keeping the freshness and the traceability of the different items. So probably we are going to invest a lot into data fabric, augmented analytics, and self-explainable AIs, and probably it is going to be more simpler. You're not going to need a statistician every time to explain the model output. It should be as explainable as plain English. So this is going to be the some of the emergent technology and the platforms which is going to enable transformation. Now, I just want to talk quickly and probably to the students and definitely to our researchers that, means if I try to frame it, probably it is going to be always a use case driven, because no any world is going to invest in you if it is just a kind of a, intellectual exercise or, just the running some algorithm. So you need to define the value creation at the beginning of asking the investment, and probably you're going to diversify on the data ecosystem more than what is inside available to you. And definitely you are going to have the certain frameworks which is going to help you in driving the efficient solution. As much as effort you have invested into the, doing the problem solving, probably in today's time, and especially if I talk about the Indian context, we need to spend double that effort in driving the adoption and probably helping businesses to realize that insights. Otherwise, probably it is not going to see the light, success light again and again. It can be one-time investment, and probably you will stop doing next time. And I'll tell you, the lot of challenges with the business leader is that still we doubt that is this investment worth today, or shall we wait for a few of the more years when my organization and people, data, technology is going to be more ready to do this transformation. So probably this is very important message I want to highlight, and here you're going to take care on when you're driving any of the transformation using the artificial intelligence and machine learning. Now, nothing new, but I must say that with the business leaders, probably the people who are trusting that, okay, let's wait for the traditional model and let the digital to get more settle in, and we avoid the risk of investing into the high cost and probably not sure of the return in the immediate time. So probably this is some of the research which have been published, where definitely at some point in time you will exponentiate the return on the digital operating model than the traditional operating model. So I must say that this is going to be the theme of, and most of the leadership is going to understand and appreciate this transformation. So now just to summarize a couple of bits here. So whenever you're talking transformation, and even the artificial intelligence and machine learning, so probably you're going to classify that how you're going to enable those solutions, how you're producing the solution using some of the platform, and then definitely a lot of open source are going to enable your problem solving. And then the most of the, again, I talked about that, how you're going to make consumption right. So this is the 3-step process. And either you can say that the frameworks, which probably you have to detail out as clear as possible than just looking at the data and the model. So probably this is one of the highlights I would like to put up. Now, just to talk on that, and as I think some of us have just talked here, so it can be the cost savings, where the lot of conservative leadership would say that, okay, I'm using analytics to reduce my cost on supply chain, effective purchasing system, mitigating the risk and all. But probably there can be a leadership, they would like to validate their decision. And it can be, I say that, okay, it is a way of life, or is it just an ad hoc request that you want to validate your expertise and the strong decision-making ability in the given business? So probably these are the 2 prominent themes, but in the coming time, definitely most of the competitive advantage innovations are going to be driven by technology and definitely by artificial intelligence and machine learning. Now, just on my last slide, I would like to summarize that, okay, if I look at the possibilities, then what are the pure play possibilities? So I will integrating analytics or big data based intervention for Indian agriculture, visited villages, the distributors across the country, understood their problem, and can we design a deep learning, and definitely we enable the solution where deep learning can take the picture of your crops and tell you that, okay, what disease the crop has, and probably you can help farmers to drive the solution. I had my career started into the pharmaceutical industry, the drug discovery process, and I know that it is a long and you run with a lot of risk. So I feel that in coming time, the quantum computing is going to drive many of biochemical simulation and may help reducing the cost of drug discovery and may help in making the drug more efficient and better. So this, I feel that a possible theme coming in the decade. Now I feel that, definitely the biggest magic, what researchers say, is that we are going to see when big data and artificial intelligence is going to get, see our, internal body dynamics, chemical reactions, and probably the metabolism monitoring and early signals like I have done for the automotive businesses, where you can trace that what is going to fail in the car at an early stage, and probably we can do for the human body. So this is going to be another theme which I bet that in coming time is going to be a big transformation. I say that, not only the technology, but also the non-technology trends, I would like to say that. So probably we are going to look at, and especially for the country like India, we should invest in the data literacy, artificial intelligence governance, and probably many of the public sector has to get influenced and embedded with the AI-driven transformation. So probably you need to have the data storytellers, you need to practice the privacy and ethics when I know that, okay, my data is going to be available to at the disposal of everyone. So how it is going to protecting my personal, it is not going to harm my personal existence. So probably these are the themes, and I might have taken a few more minutes, but I'll just wait for some of the questions, and probably I'll wrap up with this slide here. So over to the forum here. Let me know in case any question.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir,
for sharing your valuable views with us. The floor is open to students for questions. I would like to hand over to Mr. Chirag Bansal, PGDM first year student, to moderate the question and answer session. Please, Chirag.
Good morning, sir. We have a question for you from our students. Since innovation is something which play a pivot role in the data world, then how can we integrate with agriculture sector, which forms a very major part of our GDP?
Right. Thanks a lot for this question, Chirag. And probably, as I said, no matter what industry I would be, but I would be always emotionally invested to the agriculture. So one, I see that, one on the, production side, probably, the help of satellites. So 5% increase in the production of potato crashes the 50%, more than 50% of prices in the market. And I personally wonder whether this consumption is going to be as par with the production. So probably I feel that one, the data is immense, and probably we need to create a lot of investment where there can be the visibility that, okay, what is crossing the optimum consumption, and probably you are producing what is in the demand. And you must have seen how the panic happens with the farmers. The disease arrival. So imagine with the images and the early environmental condition, we assimilate the information and tell the farmer that, okay, what disease is going to come, and probably you can prevent those damages to the crops. In my last year, one of the brainstorming session, and probably this is in the news and I can talk about it. So disease sense is a sensor in the tractors at Mahindra and Mahindra, which takes the tractor data and tells the farm, the tractor valving to us actually right now, but it can tell to the farmer also. But imagine the equipments, the farm machineries, while they dipped into the soil, tell you the fertilizer nutrition content and supporting ingredient you need for the soil to perform better. Now imagine you have you're getting the soil information, and imagine that you can connect to the market, that how far is the market from that farmer, and you tell on a real time that what is the mandi price is happening. And again, on the stockyard side, I would say that there's a lot of efficiency can be there. Disease we have talked about. Again, I say that on the distribution side, asymmetric information is there, which I feel that it can be staged in the big data landscape, and probably it can benefit the human and the society, and especially the India as a country. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. It was a very insightful answer. Over to you, comparing team.
Thank you, Chirag. Thank you so much, sir. I would now request Professor G.L. Sharma and Dr. Sandhya Makkar to felicitate Mr. Shiv Kumar with the memento. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks a lot, everyone, and I wish you a great session ahead. And thank you, Professor Praveen Gupta, Dr. Shivani, and entire management for having me here. And probably I'll take a leave for now, and wish a great success to the following speakers, and a great success to the institute and the students. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable time. It is indeed a pleasure to inform you all that we have the honored presence of our beloved chairman, Shri Anil Shastri ji. Shri Anil Shastri, son of Shri Lal Bahadur Shastri, second Prime Minister of India, graduated in economics from St. Stephen College, University of Delhi, and did advanced management program from Ashridge Management College, UK. He has done general management program from Administrative Staff College of India, Hyderabad, and Business Management Program from Tata Management Training Center, Pune. He has served the corporate world for around 2 decades at very senior positions. He is Chairman, Board of Governors, Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management and Technology, Bareilly, and also the Chairman, Board of Governors, Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management, Delhi. He is an active member of Indian National Congress and an active member on Twitter. Thank you so much, sir, for being here with us today. Now, I would request Ms. Shiali Sharma to present a bouquet to sir. I would now request Sri Anil Shastri ji to come up on the stage and offer floral tributes to late Sri Lal Bahadur Shastri ji. I now request Sri Anil Shastri ji to release a book titled Privacy Vulnerabilities and Data Security Challenges in the IoT, published by CRC Press, Taylor and Francis Group USA, edited by Dr. Sandhya Makkar, LBSIM, along with co-editors Dr. Agarwal and Dr. Tran. I further request Professor Praveen Gupta, Professor G.L. Sharma, Dr. Shivani Bali, Dr. Sandhya Makkar and Yash Khanna to launch the book. The book takes the reader on a journey that begins with understanding security issues in IoT-enabled technologies and how these can be applied in various sectors. It walks readers through engaging with security challenges and building a safe infrastructure for IoT devices. The book helps researchers and practitioners understand the security architecture of IoT and the state of the art in IoT countermeasures. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, sir.
Listening to such great minds has been an enriching experience. And on this note, we have finally come to an end of our inaugural session. I would now like to request Dr. Sandhya Makkar, Senior Assistant Professor, LBSIM, to deliver the vote of thanks. Please, ma'am.
Respected Chairman Sir, Shri Anil Shastri Ji, Director Sir, Professor Praveen Gupta, Dr. G.L. Sharma, Dr. Shivani Bali, Chief Guest of today, Professor Dinesh Kumar, Keynote Speaker, Mr. Shiv Kumar, Chief Administrative Officer, Colonel Ajay Sood, all my faculty colleagues, students, and virtual guests, a very warm and cherishing morning to all of you. It is indeed my pleasure to offer a vote of thanks for the inaugural session. Sir Albert Einstein once said, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." That says, transformation and innovation does not usually happen unless you change the way you have been working. The quote aptly goes with our theme of today, business transformation, turning technology and innovation to achieve excellence. In the current inaugural session, we had many deliberations on artificial intelligence-driven innovations, economic drivers of business, how to create competitive advantage, saving lives of neonatal babies, using machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithms, transforming the lives of people in general using AI and ML. So they all are very enriching for all of us. On behalf of entire fraternity, my sincere thanks to Shri Anil Shastri Ji, Chairman BOG, for gracing the presence in the international seminar and releasing my book. Sir, your presence has added vibrancy to the entire event. My deep sense of appreciation to our director, Sir, Professor Praveen Gupta, the catalyst who inspire us to do our best. My sincere thanks to Professor G.L. Sharma for his presence. Sir, you are always the source of strength for all of us. My sincere gratitude to our area chair and the convener of the international seminar, Dr. Shivani Bali. I also thank my area colleagues, Dr. Rajkumari Mittal, Dr. Sugandha Agrawal, for the fruitful discussions during the conduct of this international event. My sincere thanks to our Chief Administrative Officer because of his continuous support. I also want to thank all the administrative staff who work behind the scene and provide us support and strength. My deep appreciation to the students of Management Grid, Eureka Club, and DEA Club who made this event happen. I thank all my audience, virtual guests, and students for their patient listening. Looking forward for the great day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. With this, we now come to the end of our first session. We will be beginning with our next session post a break of 5 minutes. Thank you. Aristoteles rightly said, a company can seize extraordinary opportunities only if it is very good at the ordinary operations. On this note, I, Shyali Sharma, welcome you back to our seminar on business transformation, turning technology and innovation to achieve excellence. Taking the seminar forward, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce our first keynote speaker for this session, Mr. Varun Mehta. Mr. Varun Mehta, Director, Customer Advisory Global Practice at SAS, has more than 17 years of experience in the fraud and security industry and is a certified fraud examiner. He has worked on several client engagements spanning across the globe, including those in the UK, US, Asia Pacific, and Middle East regions. Mr. Mehta has worked with some of the largest governments, public safety teams, financial institutions, and commercial businesses in the areas of risk, compliance, fraud, security, and hands-on experience in technology and solution. Before SAS, Mr. Varun worked with companies like Palantir, Wynard Group, and Tech Mahindra. In the cybersecurity domain, he has been working extensively on detection strategies using data analytics, machine learning, and artificial intelligence on cyber threats and adversaries. Mr. Mehta has spent a long tenure in the Middle East and emerging markets and has been covering the Asia Pacific region, leading the fraud, waste, and abuse practice in the government space lately. He has extensive experience in the areas of cybersecurity, intelligence, policing, law enforcement, customs, tax agencies, border securities, healthcare, audit, and integrity functions in government, working at both tactical system and control structures around government-funded policy programs. Mr. Varun's core strength is an objective and ethical use of analytics in the detection and investigation of inconsistencies in government and commercial functions. Sir, it's an honor to have you with us today. May I now request you to kindly deliver the keynote address. Please, sir. Sir, you're not audible.
Hello, Siali, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Siali, just confirming two main things. One, you can see the slides that I'm presenting and you can hear me fine.
Yes, sir, you're audible and the slides are visible.
Excellent. So thanks a lot for the introduction, Siali. I'm going to start immediately to talk about the subject area today. I think this is an excellent forum where we're talking about how business transformation has evolved. And one of the interesting facets that we've been working on at our workplace is something we call as continuous monitoring for spend analytics. Before I start, I just want to give a little bit of a background. I work at a company called SAS at the moment, and I'm based in Sydney, Australia. So hello, everybody from Sydney. One major driver over the years that we've been experiencing at SAS is working with some very large organizations, whether it is governments, whether it is enterprise customers. And one of the significant challenges these companies are facing is the increasing risk of theft. I've got plenty of personal real life experiences where we've seen interesting cases emerge from within organizations. And these are people that you've trusted, the people that these organizations have empowered, trusted, and allowed access to be able to steal not just information, but property. They've been able to steal and have significant monitoring impacts on the functioning of these organizations. A big area of focus for me usually is compliance and audit. And over the years, we've realized that audit as a function has evolved significantly thanks to the help of data, analytics, and machine learning. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of these very large organizations. When I say large organizations, think about some of the largest telcos today, some of the largest energy companies. Mr. Shiv Kumar had talked a little bit about energy companies, especially Schlumberger, etc. But many of these companies tend to work with multitude of different vendors, suppliers, even third-party contractors. a lot of money is spent on these different service gatherings, including manufacturing companies, where a lot of raw material is bought, services are bought, and there's a lot of third-party payment structure that is formed. A lot of times we've seen significant gaps, and this is a very critical area that today technology and digital transformation is trying to fill in. So let's go into the subject. Where is the problem that we've seen? And this is a study which is available online. One of the main aspects of this study was that a lot of fraud that is suffered in the last 3 to 4 years has been significant in terms of not just physical assets or stocks, but the biggest one that we're seeing is the vendor supplier or the procurement fraud. So it's actually the number 2 most important problem that we are seeing today. When you're procuring goods and services from third-party providers, it's a significant challenge to understand where the money is going and how it's being utilized. So one of the areas of solution that I've personally worked with and I'm constantly working on with many enterprise customers is to see how to understand their spending behavior and then find fraud in that aspect. So continuing from what we've learned so far in the session today, I'm going to show you some real life examples. I'm actually going to walk you through some screenshots of what we've done and exact case studies of how we found those problems. Let's go through why we are doing this. As I said, it's the number 2 economic crime on the planet today. As I said, it is committed by people whom we've trusted as our employees, as our contractors. It's done by employees that we've hired or colleagues that we respect. And there's so many cases of these continuously happening fraud factors that it's very easy to detect more and more of these patterns, but it's more important to not just detect post facto, but predict when these things start to change. So let's take some examples first. What are we talking about today? And the biggest element we're talking about is integrity. When goods and services are purchased from outside people, one of the process that is usually that occurs is a procurement process. Under the procurement process, generally companies tend to provide tenders and bids and quote processes. There's a vendor selection and setting criteria under which vendors are selected, after which contracting happens, a quality review, and then the payments are processed. Now, at each stage, we found several significant markers of fraud. So when the tender bids were raised, price fixing or bid rigging used to be a common factor. Continuous collusion between phantom vendors, and these were vendors who were bidding for the sake of bids to eliminate out more bidders. When it was looking at contracts, we saw so many different improper or inappropriate contracting principles happening. When we did quality reviews, of course, the specifications were not met from where the contracts had started. And the most important and the most difficult to track area was payments processing. And I think we'll focus on all 5, but the area where we've seen the maximum amount of fraud is today in payments processing. This is because the money is going in that phase. So it becomes very important that all the 4 presetting variables tend to then contribute to that 5th element, which is actually monetary. Let's look at a bit more details. So when we talk about procurement or integrity, one of the most important things is it's not just only fraud. Sometimes these are careless mistakes. So accidental mistakes, bad accounting practices, incorrect data entries, or duplicate payments. Sometimes these challenges are intentional, where colluded entities tend to have that element of fraud. So these are things which are done with an intention to commit fraud. In some of the other areas, this could be malicious. So this could be just less frequent, but very highly damaging because these are very hard to detect. Generally, the collusion happens with an internal employee first before the external parties can impact. And in some examples, I'll give you one clear example. I was working with a very significant, one of the largest companies in the world today, and we were working for this exact area with that company. As part of a process, the company's actual retirement age of an employee should be 65. But when we just looked at the employee master list for that company, we figured out that there was about 1,400 people who were above the age of 85. And they were being paid for the last 25 years. The only difference was one of the HR employees had actually just flipped their bank account, had not initiated separation activity on retirement, but he continued to put the employee on payroll and just switched the account to a bank account that he was controlling. Now, this was obviously a lack of control, lack of risk procedures, but it was significant impact because for the last 25 years, he was deriving salaries of 1,400 plus people who had since retired from the organization. Remember, these are classical examples that can be found in data. And sometimes these are not even advanced machine learning concepts. These just might be simple lookups or simple analysis checks. But they then pave way for your analytics and then significant machine learning techniques to come forth. Let's take a look further. When we speak to our customers, one of the most common challenge that I've heard is most of our risk office team members will say, the first thing they say is, we don't have a fraud problem. This is the most common thing I hear when we go into a discussion with many of our customers. The second major problem is I often hear people saying, our data quality is excellent. And I can tell you none of them actually, when you compound these two problems, none of them give way to that third area, which is most of them actually do not even know the size of their problem. Denial continues to make them unaware of these checks. In many examples, I've actually done hands-on exercises, just stay in for about a few weeks, run a few checks, and by the time we actually give them some results, they're amazed. In one example, we had just found one red flag that compounded to the value of 125 million US dollars. And imagine the data analysis does not take that much cost. The data analysis takes much lesser, but the impact of this was even a single red flag could have saved them the monetary value of $125 million. Let's go deeper and talk about this cost, because cost sometimes becomes a very important question. Now, I'll put in some parameters from what we've learned delivering some of these solutions in industry, actually. And one of the most important facets is it takes about 18 months on an average for a company to become aware of a fraud. So fraudsters tend to continue doing their actions, but companies tend to be unaware. And on an average, sometimes they get to be aware much faster, but it takes about 18 months before it can be aware of that there's a significant fraud happening. Another challenge that we did was monetary perspective. It takes about 130,000 euros to understand recovering and understand the lost procurement fraud perspective. Now, although in principle losses can be much more, but this is still a common factor that we've seen. Another thing is it takes at least a good 4 years for prosecution to happen. Remember, once fraud is understood or captured, the next major step is to prosecute the miscreants. It is very difficult to get that value back. It takes long time. It's very difficult. For every dollar lost, you get to pay so much more that many of the companies tend to just write off. In India, there was a classic case of a company called Satyam that was actually rigging their audit numbers for a long period before they had to come in clean because it would not have been hidden anymore. Examples like these, Petrobras, a company in Brazil, was actually very similar. We've also seen some very similar cases in countries like South Africa, Australia, even India, as well as Singapore. Now, what is this problem? Is it a single regional problem? Is it multiple countries? I can guarantee not. Having worked with several customers across the globe, I can tell you this is a problem that we've seen all across the globe. And it covers not just one area. It covers anywhere where you're spending money, then it becomes a common problem because people tend to continue to do fraud because they're behind the money. And some of these numbers up here will tell you how significant these are, including whether it is an emerging market, whether it is a proven market, the Western world countries, nobody is disaware of this. In fact, as we talk, there's a news flash coming in from China where one of the internal Deloitte employees, being one of the auditing firms, has actually, there's a whistleblower who's raised concerns about how Deloitte has been auditing for years. In fact, and now Deloitte's been in question in China as well. In all the big four companies have been questioned at different times because of the practices that they've used for audit practices. What we bring to the table is a focus of the same process, but continuously monitoring it using data and analysis techniques. How do we do that? Now, this is the main area, or this is the main focus that we had. Although I'm going to talk a little bit about spend analytics today, remember, there's quite a few areas that we also look at. We also look at procure to pay process. So procure to pay is a process where we pay to procure services or goods. Time and expenses is a very critical area. All of these functions are where money is spent by an enterprise firm. So whenever they spend money, they spend either in buying services, raw materials, goods. They either pay time and material expenses to their employees. So somebody might be filing in hours, extra hours, reimbursements. There's also waste and abuse, but there's areas like contract management, supplier management, as I said, internal fraud, and one of the most important areas is invoice reconciliation. Now, there are different softwares and different techniques out there, but one basic perspective that we bring is how do we bring the element of data and analytics? We obviously start with data, but we also look at the process. In several firms that we figured out red flags, sometimes these are overriding business principles. I'll give you an example. We were working with a very large government healthcare provider. So this is a Ministry of Health in one of the mature markets. And one thing we found out was every time the payments were made even before the services were rendered. Now, when we figured that out and we raised that concern that over $1 billion worth of payments were done even before the services were rendered, this came out to be a normal business practice for that agency. Given this was a government firm, you cannot really deny whether this is right or wrong. But in business ethics, this would be a wrong principle because you would actually be doing, you would be paying for services and goods rendered even before they were actually delivered. And in many cases, they never ended up being delivered. In several cases, we also found opportunities to find fraud. So for example, in a large telco, we found dealers doing fraudulent activities because they had an opportunity to do it. In some cases, we saw organized crime coming up. So these were outsiders and insiders combining force to look at this perspective from a theft element. Similar to that, we found anomalous areas. Anomalous areas are quite common when we look at time and one common thing was things like very basic print supplies or office supplies. One printer cartridge, which was approved to be between 900 to 1200 price range. One of the group companies was paying 37,000 for each printer cartridge to a preferred vendor every single time. And it takes about 5 minutes for uncovering such anomalies because using data and analytics, it is very easy to detect these challenges. Let's go further. As I said, today what we're going to do is look at this central pillar from different perspectives, whether it is procurement integrity or spend or supplier integrity. We're going to look at largely things like spend analytics. This is a very important area. Even before you go and find fraud or transform your business to use data and analytics, one of the most basic questions execs or large value senior management teams would ask us is, can you tell me where my spend is? Where am I spending that dollar? A lot of times, even before detecting fraud, waste, and abuse, there can be techniques to save money. I'll give you an example. So a large telco was using a lot of travel services. Their employees would travel all across the country, and what they were trying to do was they were trying to pay many different vendors. So they would always book flights between 4 different flight providers. They would always pay hotel providers multiple monetary gains. Now, one of the questions they asked was, what if my entire 100 million plus hotel cost was sent to a single hotel chain and I can run a single contract with them to give me a corporate discount? These are common techniques in business where a promised business is assured to get a significant discounting criteria and multiple benefits when employees stay on those properties, etc. But to understand that, you need to have a single view of where your money is going through. And that single view can then go to your entire supply chain, it could go to your entire vendor range. You can understand and slice and dice in multiple ways. Let's look at how we did that. So we saw that supply chain data was often opaque and siloed. It was so difficult to crack that each procurement system would not talk to the other. Every time we went in, we saw the purchase orders, the invoices, and the data catalogs, etc., would not have a single codification or categorization. When taxonomies were implemented, and remember these are software solutions, but being implemented by multiple vendors, there's no standardization. When we looked at suppliers, there were so many duplicate suppliers with incomplete data. And the most important consequences of this was the inventory was not optimized, of course. So there was over dimensioning of the inventory supplies. There was so much more duplicates. In a process perspective, no single person in the organization could tell us what exactly the process was, but also the contract and pricing. And I gave you an example of that. There was no rebate given to them, although they were paying so much more monetary value to a specific set of vendors. And this spend analytics became a huge challenge for many companies because it could be very difficult because sometimes these are domain-specific problems. So when you look at domain-specific, when you see data elements, you see A4 can be a car model, could be an Audi A4, or it could be a paper size, so A4 size paper, or it could be a screw grade. So it was so difficult to understand which vendor was supplying what A4. And when you go into the ambiguity side, we saw examples like gasket for pump or pump for gasket had two different meanings. So we had to obviously cleanse it, and this was a data problem. We obviously worked with it in many different ways to come together, not just look at it from domain perspective, but removing ambiguities, but then bring forth a view that would simplify and company spending behavior. It would not just improvise category cost management. So if I could categorize where these goods and services was, I could keep the costs under control and optimize my supplier base. So tomorrow, one of the supplier goes down, I would have a very good understanding of what other suppliers would be available nearest to my location and would have an optimal supply to provide me quick supplies. In manufacturing, remember your ultimate monetary value is how quickly you manufacture. Even companies like Tesla are struggling to ensure the supply of their goods, though being one of the top-notch manufacturers in the world, because they have a good handle of the suppliers. But that's how they continue to maintain these challenges. A secondary element to that, as I said before, was to identify leakages. Understand how we were spending with each categories and mix of vendors, but better our risk management approach. Going forward, we used an AI-based approach for harmonization and transparency of this procurement and supply chain data. Of course, from a data intelligence side, we worked on various challenges, but one of the main challenges that we had foreseen was these large commercial organizations were not procuring goods and services from one country or one single language. In many cases, they were procuring these from 30 or 50 different countries with data sets or invoices coming in 25 different languages. Not just standardizing that, synthesizing that data, but also extraction and normalization of technical information from ERP systems was very critical. We obviously improved our proprietary AI techniques to exploit this knowledge of customer domain and bring forth a single view. When we look at the analytics side of it, this was very important because now we're talking of scale, volume. Obviously, big data being a common misnomer, I think we're now looking at systems that were set between multiple different technologies, so integrating from those technologies, but getting a single aggregated view on the entire process conversion was very significantly challenging. And analytics provide a key approach where we used our solutions to support these decisions. I think in the first session when Dr. Dinesh Kumar talked about decision sciences, this was very, very important. That decision sciences are applied at almost every function of an organization today. I think he lightly touched about the supply chain and manufacturing portion of it, but this is the practical implementation of how we've done that. And at the end, the solution would cover, as I said, it covered a multilingual data management and interface that would provide all the knowledge bases from over 250 projects in last 15 years in procure to pay domain. We actually then have significant visual interfaces that I'll show some examples of today, and I'll give you what the end results was. let's look at what the end points from here were. So when we finally built this solution, it looked something like this, where we had a single data ingestion interface, data quality, analytics, and then reporting. A lot of times our end customers generally touch the reports, but they don't see what happens behind the scenes. And it's very important to explain to them that the data that we get is largely about suppliers, invoices, orders, and contracts. Think ERP data. But a lot of the work that we do is materialize these groupings, understand, look at the manufacturer codes. But from an analytics perspective, it's a large work around an entity resolution, network resolution. When we run analytics, we run not just profiling and peer grouping or anomaly techniques, but we also look at it from a business domain in terms of if two suppliers are of very similar domain, why is one charging so much more for the same line item versus the other? So it used to go into multiple different scoring techniques and go down to that level before we could then report. Now, these are some examples of what we had from one of the special projects where we saw when you get into a exec level view, the first thing you would want to understand is where is my spend happening? So most of my spend is on commercial components. I also procure general services, consulting services, logistics, etc. But I also want to understand when spend behavior is understood, which countries where the spend is going to. Similarly, which vendors are then paid the highest. But these characteristics are not just here. These are the highest level views. I should be able to drill down from an exec level and say, if I'm looking at semi-finished product and materials, then I know most of them are procured through Spain. But if I had a fault line with Spain, what is the next best country that I could go to? Was Germany or Portugal, where I do have secondary level contracts, but I don't leverage them enough. So my business teams can now go in and initiate price negotiations or initial early contracts. In case Spain as a supply line goes down, I know my backup lines would be Germany and Portugal. Similarly, I could look at invoice spend versus purchase orders and go deeper into that specific area. So when I look at structures and building construction or other supplies, then I know I could go drill down to each country and look at invoice spending from those countries. Another area that I wanted to look at was invoice spending from not just country level, but organization level, and look at spend over the last few years. That sometimes give me ideas about when my spends are higher. So when my inventory goes down, when the inventory needs to be updated, or how soon these systems need to be refreshed. Another major element was when we looked at the individual line items. So I could not just go down, but look at each purchase order, but look at potential supplier names for that same line item. So in sometimes what happens is I can derive optimization and saving potentials by understanding that one vendor that is supplying materials to one of my group corporations is actually charging me about 20% higher amount than some of the other vendors who are providing the exact same line item, but to my other group corporations. So sometimes these information points get hidden into multiple distributed companies. As I said, you can actually go down further to look at not just line items, but amounts, distinctive descriptions. A large times we've also done profiling, so understand what the average price is, max, mins, and what our invoice spend is. Sometimes these provide very stark distinctions for the goods and services procured. At the end, I think the functional summary of this was very simple. We would take ERP data, largely run data management, and this is the part where we run the enrichment, where we do classification domain level enrichment, and use ideation versus analytics and do price comparisons to present reports. Now, all of this said and done, as I said, we do have an automated solution finally that we did for in 25 over languages, but with rules and rules engine and machine learning techniques. As you see, we use multiple techniques for decision trees, Bayesian artificial intelligence, or semantic layers, but even convolution neural networks. And many of these techniques have been very, very effective in many different areas. What is the result of this? Let's take a look at the final result before I can summarize. I'm going to show you two case studies today about two companies. First is a company a very, very large company, about 2,500 employees with interest in outside entities. We knew that $300 million were paid to suppliers known to be colluding with employees. So when we did the actual check, we found out over $300 million were paid to suppliers that were then colluding with internal employees. we saw about $17 million relating to duplicate invoices, which means the same invoice was paid multiple times, and we saw about $17 million paid to them. We also saw about 25 ghost employees in the network who had since left, were just on the system, and over $500 million paid to suppliers without receiving the actual goods. So about $500 million were paid without actually receiving the goods, and that money was gone in. This was very interesting because, remember, for a customer like this, the ROI was almost about 300% of what they would pay for a solution like this. And remember, the fundamental of the solution is how we can process data, but with the right value of domain and in the right value of business context. Going to case study 2, I wanted to show you, this was very, very interesting. This is a project I personally worked on. We found over 500 employees with the same surname and the exact same date of birth. As I said before, in this example, we had 2,000 plus employees who were age 65 plus, which was the actual official date of retirement. We found about 4,800 suppliers which had the exact same bank account, but they were different names. And this is very, very unusual, which means either these are just companies sharing bank account for accounting purposes, or there was something really malicious to this. We found 800 employees who had shared bank account information with suppliers. So these were about 800 employees whose bank account was the same bank account for a supplier. And I know a few cases where one of the procurement officers had his wife registered a company with the exact same bank account and was getting preferred payments for that specific supplier, but the company was just in the name of his wife. And that's how we figured this out. We also found 650 employees with active interest in suppliers. So they were on board of directors or nominal shareholders. These are what we call in the corporate world, these are called conflicts of interest being available. And in general, conflicts of interest is not bad if they're declared. But in many cases, in these 650, many of them were not even declared. So again, the final outputs were, you see, we found about 45,000 multiple invoices submitted on the same day, 40,000 sequential invoicing on the same day, as well as 54,000 duplicate invoices. Remember, many of these things were analytics driven. Many of these things were just data checks. But as a combined value, an enterprise company, a government agency would love to see these results, because these are fallacies in the system being used by the own employees, the accountants, the purchasing agency, the procurement office would do it. At the end, I'd just like to summarize and say thanks, but I'm open to questions. I'm happy to take questions at this stage. But this is a core area. When we talk about business transformation, I think we've seen a significant uptake of these kind of challenges, and I'm more than happy to talk about this subject if required.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
The floor is now open to students for questions. I would like to hand over to Mr. Sarthak Sharma, PGDM first year student, to moderate the question and answer session. Please, Sarthak.
Good afternoon, sir. So, sir, the question I would like to ask on behalf of our students is that, talking about the case in Mumbai where misinformation led to a major breach in pandemic norms, how can we come up with a solution for such kind of situation in future which occurs due to the misinformation of social media?
So let me answer this. This is slightly different from what I presented, but I'll be happy to answer this question, because we do work with negative media or fake media components. We do have a solution where we actually look at these challenges. Remember, when we talk about open source intelligence or data available on the web, the media channels, etc., it's very difficult to find out what is authentic and what is not. As common human beings, we're often biased towards what we hear or what we tend to see, although the intrinsic facts can vary significantly. Now, many countries have worked with us in general to get to a solution where we evaluate the authenticity of many of such media sources. But I think that the bigger question here is about the pandemic outbreak in terms of how do we ensure pandemic norms. So there's a few areas that we're seeing challenges in, and how we've uncovered is same supplies. When we talk about supply chain, we're talking about the vaccination supply chain today, and that being a major economic driver. So a lot of companies have made significant profits because their vaccinations have been approved. Now, from that vaccination manufacturer to the end person, there's a huge chance of how do we maintain that information. So one part of it was how do we maintain media channels, but the other part is how do we ensure a consistent supply chain initiative that the vaccination to the end donor gets to the right place. Both sides we've worked using data analytics. Remember, sensory information is key for these initiatives. It's very important to have an auditable integrity based network where you can monitor metrics at each stage and understand which vaccination went to where, or how the pandemic outbreaks being done. I think in one of the sessions I've also presented disease outbreak control or vaccination supply management. We can actually cover all of them using analytics. It's just a question of slightly different data set, but continuously monitoring. There's some use of advanced technologies today like blockchain, but rightly implemented, they can also provide a single source of truth, an immutable data source where you can use that to identify where the end channels are.
Thank you, sir. Over to the comparing team.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Sarthak. I would now request Dr. Rajkumari Mittal and Dr. Shivani Bali to felicitate Mr. Varun Mehta with the memento. Thank you, ma'am. Moving on, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce our next keynote speaker for the day, Dr. Krishna Venkatesh. Dr. Venkatesh, academic consultant, Peregrine Global Fellow Institute of Directors, Santa Clara, California, USA, has over 20 years of experience in the corporate sector and 20 years of experience as an academic leader and distinguished professor of strategy, innovation, and ethics. With a bachelor's degree in engineering, a master's degree in systems, a master's degree in business administration, and 2 doctoral degrees, one in project management and the second in strategy, he is a highly qualified professional. Starting his career with a conglomerate with 32 business units, he has successfully delivered exemplary results in marketing, quality, and strategy. Dr. Venkatesh has won several awards and accolades to his name. The International Assembly for Collegiate Business Education, USA, has honored him with the Education Leader of the Year Award, and the Accreditation Council for Business Schools and Programs in the US has honored him with the Teaching Excellence Award. The American Society for Quality, USA, has awarded Dr. Venkatesh a Gold Award, a Star Award, and 2 awards of distinction, to name a few. He has conducted 75 executive training programs for CXOs, including 10 for Fortune 100 companies and 95 faculty development programs in 14 countries. It's an honor to have you here with us today, sir. May I now request you to kindly deliver the keynote address. Please, sir. Sir, you're not audible.
It's better now?
Yes, sir. Now you're audible.
Okay. Thank you. First, something I want to say by way of a disclaimer. I do not have any commercial or any other type of interest with the examples that I'm going to use in my talk. This is more of a dialogue. I want to share some real world examples and try to elicit from particularly students studying in your institution as to what they think might be the way forward in resolving some of the issues. So we are talking of innovation and business transformation. In the US, I live in a small town, and in many of the places, there are only 2 lanes of traffic. The autonomous car is already being tested on the roads of this small town. The autonomous car, as you will all recognize, denotes the cutting edge of the intersection of all the technologies that you have heard this morning. You name a technology there used by my fellow panelists, you will find their use in this one application. So here is a 21st year of the 21st century resurrection of a 400-year-old problem. So imagine an autonomous car is cruising along on one of the lanes. It's cruising at the allowed speed in that lane, when suddenly at a zebra crossing meant for pedestrians, although the light shows red, 2 children dart across the road. The onboard computer of the autonomous car quickly recognizes through the cameras installed on the car that there is danger and calculates what it needs to do. The obvious response should be that it should try to bring the car to a halt. When it computes this, it recognizes that even if it brakes hard, it would still hit the children and they would be killed. It looks for other options and determines that the only other option available to it is to swerve sharply and go into the opposite lane, where it finds that an oncoming truck would hit the car, killing the only passenger inside, namely the owner of the car, who is blissfully sleeping in the rear seat of the car. Now, we are all familiar with all the technologies that have been on display this morning. So my question to you is, if you are in charge of designing the algorithms for this car, which of the 2 alternatives would you program that car to use? Think about it. And if you have an answer, I'll be happy to tell you whether your ethical reasoning is correct or not. So much has been talked about in terms of what all these technologies can do, and these have been in place for the last 25 years. My friend and colleague, Professor Venkatesh of MIT, has written in the mid-90s itself about the 5 stages, very similar to the capability maturity models, where the first 2 levels are evolutionary and the next 3 levels are revolutionary, leading to rapid business transformation. But what is the reality in the year 2021? Just about 4% of organizations worldwide can be said to be in the business transformation phase or business reinvention phase, according to the latest IDC report, 2021. So what's happening? What's going wrong? Much as we might like to think otherwise, more than 50% of organizations are still in what might be called the digital resistors or the digital explorer stage. In other words, they are still in the process of first or at most second platform adaptation. A few of them, about 25%, are in the digital player stage, where they are trying to adopt some of the third platforms just to keep pace with competition. A few are, of course, in the digital transformation stage, where business innovation is happening. To give you a practical example of what business innovation means, I would strongly recommend you to go to Nike's webpage and see for yourself its latest product, what they call the Nike Go Fly Ease hands-free shoes. These shoes are designed such that you don't have to use your hands. It's a truly revolutionary technology that they have deployed. So why is it relevant? If there is one big lesson that we have learned in the last 1 year, it's the importance of hygiene, particularly hand hygiene. I think we must all have used more hand sanitizers in the last 1 year than anyone could have imagined in an entire lifetime. So this is what nature can teach us when a pandemic hits, or when there's a wake-up call as to our lifestyles and what we choose to do. The second example I want to bring your attention to is something that happened a few years back by a company known for innovation, Toyota. The pioneers of operational excellence, of the zero defects, the Kanban, the pull method of manufacturing, way ahead of anyone else, and whose manufacturing line can turn a raw material into a finished car in 4 hours. Compare that with the 3 weeks that most of their competitors take. So one of their most popular models, the Camry, was hit some years back with what was considered to be a scandal of enormous proportions. It was alleged that the brake pedal of this car was not functioning at all. So when the drivers tried to stop the car, instead of stopping, it accelerated and hit somebody, causing accidents, or hit another vehicle, causing an accident. Very soon this became a big media story, and you might also have, as part of your own curriculum, discuss the famous case study that has been developed on this. Although the case study does not go into the real causes of this particular defect. So Toyota promptly tried to mitigate the disaster by accepting that there might be a problem, and they settled with all the contesting families, and they spent up to $2 billion. It is now proven beyond all reasonable doubt that the scandal itself was a hoax, that there was never a problem with the brake pedals, that the real problem, it turned out, was with the people who were driving these cars. So this goes back to one of the most primitive parts of our brain called the amygdala, which controls the flight or fight response in us. And now through numerous studies on the racing tracks, very reputed people, including researchers, have found out that even though the drivers were imagining that they were pressing on the brakes, they were in reality pushing hard on the accelerator itself. So, which brings us back to the question, you may have the best of technology, you may have the best of innovations, you may reach beyond Six Sigma and reach zero defects. But how do you account for human failure, which is at the heart of corporate and organizational failure? And what about the tarnished reputation arising out of a non-issue? Who is accountable? Who is willing to rise up, stand, and be counted? And finally, my third example is also from the automobile industry, second largest producer of automobiles. Here the problem in operational terms is it happens to be an onboard computer which was deliberately designed to give false results whenever it found out that the vehicle was being tested for emission standards. Time magazine famously covered this as a cover story, and Fortune magazine also, calling it Hoaxwagon. Now it has been proven, again beyond reasonable doubt, that the entire board the chief executive of the organization, the operations director, and all the senior executives involved were fully aware of this, that there was this deliberate attempt to fool emission standards. So the previous presenter was talking in terms of $500 million and $300 million and fraud and so on. My dear friends, this one mistake has cost the company more than $40 billion to date. In terms they're agreeing to pay all the owners of the cars to redress the defect, to completely change the emission system itself, and to make it compliant with the existing standards. $40 billion, think about it. Many of the top executives, including the CEO, have had to resign. But obviously there is more to this than meets the eye. So we are talking of big data and we are talking of analytics. We are saying that this is the age of algorithms. The people who control data are going to rule the world, it has been said. About a year back, as the probably representing the next generation of innovation, I received an electronic reader, a prototype of an electronic reader. What is special about this electronic reader is that I cannot switch its camera off. So it is designed to detect my emotions, my facial muscles, whether I am expressing joy while reading a passage or whether I am expressing sadness or sorrow. So the idea is that by capturing these emotions in real time and analyzing them, some AI system located somewhere in this planet, probably underwater, I would presume, would be able to make recommendations for what I should read next based on my emotions. This is the intersection of IT and biotech. So, what is the recommendation that I have got as the latest one? What book should I read based on what I have been reading in the last few months? It turns out that the recommendation is for me to read The Sixth Extinction by the best-selling author, Ms. Colbert. She has traced the 5 major extinctions that have occurred since we know evolution to have started. And she traces what the next extinction might be. So we are, my friends, at a stage where the algorithms are being designed to hack our brains. Is this good? I don't know. Who am I to judge? On the positive side, it can prove to be very beneficial if used appropriately. Because imagine that I have a subdermal probe inserted. It can detect things years in advance of their actual occurrence and therefore might be very useful in medicine and how we use medicine to treat many diseases. On the other hand, it can also mean that our entire data will be available to anyone who is willing to pay the price, and therefore we may be susceptible to all kinds of things. And as Stephen Hawking famously said once, that the extinction of this species may not come from artificial intelligence or machine learning or any of these technologies, but by the humans that deploy these technologies. And Sir David Attenborough has said in his proclaimed documentary, we don't have time on our side. We have just about 200 years to determine whether we are going to use these technologies appropriately for the welfare of humankind or not. If we choose not to heed to nature's warnings and use technology for its own sake and allow algorithms to rule the world, then we have only 200 years before we become extinct. The choice is entirely ours. Therefore, as you celebrate innovation and as you celebrate cutting edge technologies with all the buzzwords that you can imagine that you have seen in the last 3 presentations, my submission very humbly would be, please look at the human side of it as well. Ignoring it will be at our own peril. Thank you very much for this opportunity. If there are any questions or if somebody wants to respond to the question that I posed at the beginning, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, sir. The floor is now open to students for questions. I would like to hand over to Mr. Harshit Jain, a first-year PGDM student, to moderate the question and answer session. Please, Harshit.
Good morning, sir. So the question I would like to ask you on behalf of our audience is, how did data analysis provide major contribution in the Nike hands-free project or other such future projects?
Do you please repeat the question?
Yes, sir. How did data analysis provide major contribution in the Nike hands-free project or other such future projects?
Okay, you're asking about Nike's hands-free shoe.
Yes,
is that correct? Yeah. So what they have done is they have collected information. They have used design thinking. They have asked about 100,000 of their existing customers to provide feedback on what they would see in the next generation of shoes. And since anyone who has bought a pair of Nike shoes manufactured abroad knows how much they cost, these are all people who have extensive purchasing power. So based on the feedback received, they have found that in this age of the pandemic, the single most important characteristics that customers were looking for was for a pair of shoes that would free them of their hands. And based on that, they have come up with a very ingenious, flexible design, wherein when you are wearing the shoes, it snugly fits into your feet and it will never slip out. Whereas when you do want to get out of it, you just have to apply a little pressure and your food comes out. So they have used the data provided by nearly 100,000 customers, which translates into more than 2 million data points in terms of how our feet move when getting into and out of a pair of shoes. And that has led to their working backwards and their design engineers being able to come up with this revolutionary design where it completely makes the hands redundant when it comes to wearing and getting out of your pair of shoes.
Okay, sir. Thank you. That answered my question. So now handing over to completing team.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Harshit. I would now request Dr. Rajkumari Mittal and Dr. Shivani Bali to felicitate Dr. Krishna Venkatesh with the memento. Thank you, ma'am. Listening to such great minds has been an enriching experience. And on this note, we have finally come to an end of our session 2. I would now like to request Dr. Rajkumari Mittal, Seminar Joint Convener and Assistant Professor, Operations Management, LBSIM, to deliver the vote of thanks. Please, ma'am.
Good morning and a graceful and warm, rather afternoon to one and all. Chief guest for the day, keynote speaker, respected chairman sir, director sir, Professor G.L. Sharma, my area convener, chief administrative officer, Colonel Sood, faculty colleagues, speakers across the mode, ladies and gentlemen, and my dear students. It's my privilege to have been asked to propose the vote of thanks for this session. Excuse me. First of all, I would like to give my hearty vote of thanks to Mr. Varun Mehta, Director, SES Australia Wing, for gracing the webinar with his thought-provoking and interesting address, which is the need of the hour. Sir, we understand that in the post-pandemic era, when digital powertrain is the need of the hour, integrity and safety of the data is also another challenges. I would also like to thank our second distinguished speakers, Dr. K. Venkatesh, academic consultant, PEREGRINE Global, for making this seminar interesting and wonderful with his valuable thoughts and real-time experiences, citing the examples of Nike, Toyota, and not even leaving the human touch for the digital powertrain. Wheels of the event started months back under the esteemed guidance of our area convener, Dr. Shivani Bali, with adequate planning. So on behalf of my all area members, I thank the dedicated team of students, IT staff, and administrative staff for making this event realizing. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We again profoundly thank all the dignitaries for their gracious presence in today's seminar. Moving further, our third session will begin at 2 p.m. post the lunch break. Thank you all once again for joining in and for being such a great audience. Thank you.